It is the most famous palace in the world, that a monument to absolute power, to art, to the glory of France. Versailles. Its halls echo with the ghosts of whispers, its gilded walls soaked in the secrets of the Sun King and his descendants. But of all the secrets this palace has ever kept, none was more whispered about, more politically explosive, or more tragically human than the one that lay behind a single locked bedroom door. This is not just a story of kings and queens. It is a story of two teenagers, thrust onto the world's most dazzling stage, bound by duty, and trapped by a private failure that would become a public obsession. This is the story of a marriage that failed to begin for 7 long years, and how that failure helped topple a kingdom. Our story begins not in France but in Vienna in the year 1770. A 14-year-old archduchess named Maria Antoinette is saying goodbye to everything she has ever known. She is the youngest daughter of the formidable Empress Maria Theresa of Austria. For centuries, France and Austria have been bitter enemies, their fields watered by the blood of each other's soldiers. But politics is a fickle game. A new alliance has been forged, and the glue for this fragile peace is to be the wedding of 2 children. Maria Antoinette is to be that glue. In a solemn ceremony, she is stripped of all her Austrian possessions, even her clothes. She is scrubbed, preened, and remade into a French princess. Her name is changed to Marie Antoinette. The journey to France is a grand procession. At the border, in a specially constructed pavilion, she undergoes the ritual known as the handover. She must leave her Austrian attendants, her pet dog, even the clothes on her back. Completely naked, she is redressed in French-made linens and silks. It is a powerful, humiliating metaphor. She no longer belongs to herself or to Austria. She is now a possession of France. She meets her future husband, the 15-year-old Dauphin, Louis Auguste, for the first time. He is not what she or anyone expected. While she is graceful and vivacious, he is awkward, shy, and heavy-set. His passions are not for courtly dance or conversation, but for hunting, eating, and most of all lock-making. In his private workshop, he would spend hours filing intricate metal mechanisms, finding solace in the simple, solvable problems that his public life so clearly lacked. Their wedding day, May 16, 1770, is a spectacle of almost unimaginable opulence. 5,000 guests packed the royal chapel at Versailles, a sea of diamonds, silks, and powdered wigs under a ceiling painted with scenes of heavenly glory. The young Dauphin wears a suit of cloth of gold. His new bride is draped in a silver gown, a diamond crown pressing down upon her pale, elaborately styled hair. But the omens were there for those who chose to see them. As the archbishop pronounced them man and wife, a violent storm broke over Versailles. A planned fireworks display to celebrate the union ended in disaster. A stray rocket set off a panic, and in the ensuing stampede, hundreds of people were trampled to death in the streets of Paris. The marriage, it seemed, was cursed from the start. That night, the elaborate ritual of the couture took place. The most powerful nobles in France gathered to watch the young couple put on their nightclothes and be escorted to the matrimonial bed. The Archbishop of Reims blessed the bed, and the courtiers finally withdrew, leaving the 2 teenagers alone in the vast, canopied bed. And nothing happened. The next morning, the same ritual was performed in reverse. The court returned for the lever, the waking. The sheets were inspected. There was no evidence that the marriage had been consummated. This, in itself, was not unusual. The pressure could be immense. But as days turned into weeks, weeks into months, and months into years, then nothing that happened behind that locked door became the most talked about subject in Europe. The heart of the problem was a mystery that has puzzled historians for centuries. The official story, the one that would dominate for hundreds of years, was a physical one. It was believed the young Louis suffered from a condition called phimosis, a tightness of the foreskin that would have made an erection painful, if not impossible. He was a boy trapped in a man's body, too timid or too embarrassed to submit to the minor, if painful, surgical procedure that would correct it. But the truth may have been more complex, a tragic cocktail of the physical and the psychological. Some modern historians suggest there may have been no phimosis at all. Instead, they point to a simple, painful incompatibility. Louis, by some accounts, was well endowed, while Marie Antoinette may have had a narrow vagina, a condition known as vaginismus that can make initial intercourse excruciating. For a young man who was fundamentally kind and unassertive, the idea of causing his wife pain may have been a powerful deterrent. And so, they settled into a strange, platonic companionship. Louis would retreat to his forge and his hunting. Marie Antoinette, starved for affection and bored out of her mind, retreated into a world of frivolity. She became the patroness of a rebellious, fast-living social set. She spent fortunes on dresses, each more extravagant than the last. Her hairstyles piled so high they sometimes had to be navigated on bended knee in her carriage. She hosted wild, all-night gambling parties at the Petit Trianon, the small chateau the king had given her, where the strict etiquette of Versailles was forbidden. The whispers in the gilded salons of the palace turned into roars of gossip that echoed throughout Paris and all of Europe. The king was mocked as an impotent cuckold, a fumbling boy. The queen was labeled a frivolous spendthrift and worse, an adulteress. The pornographic pamphlets of the day, the social media of the 18th century, depicted her in the most vile and graphic terms, engaged in every conceivable depravity with both men and women, especially with her dear friend, the Duchess de Polignac. The pressure mounted from all sides but most fiercely from Vienna. Marie Antoinette's mother, Empress Maria Theresa, was a master of statecraft who had borne 16 children. She was desperate for a grandchild to solidify the Austro-French alliance. Her letters to her daughter were a relentless barrage of criticism and advice. You spend your life in total idleness. You have become a mother without having children. The entire outcome of the alliance, the whole future of two great nations, rests on you, on your fulfillment of your duties. The words were like daggers. Marie Antoinette would weep over them, then defiantly return to her masquerades. By 1777, the situation was a full-blown political crisis. The king's own ministers were concerned. The lack of an heir created instability, inviting intrigue and rival claims to the throne. Finally, Empress Maria Theresa dispatched her son, the enlightened and pragmatic Holy Roman Emperor Joseph II, to Versailles. He arrived under the false name, Count Falkenstein, to avoid the stifling protocols of court. He was a man on a mission, part diplomat, part marriage counselor. He observed his sister and her husband with a cool, analytical eye. He spoke plainly with Marie Antoinette, chiding her for her behavior. "You have become a completely different person," he told her. "You must be more serious, more dedicated to your role as queen." But his most crucial meeting was with Louis. The two men walked together in the gardens of Versailles for hours. What was said between them has become the stuff of legend. Joseph, who was no prude, later wrote that he found the couple two complete blunderers in the art of love. He managed to win the king's confidence. He explained the mechanics of sex with a clinical frankness that the timid Louis had never encountered. Most importantly, he reportedly convinced the king that the minor surgical procedure he may have feared was simple, quick, and necessary. A husband, Joseph is said to have told him, must be able to enter his wife's room. Whether it was the surgery, the advice, or simply the brotherly intervention that broke the psychological barrier, it worked. On August 18, 1777, the long-standing barrier was finally overcome. The marriage was consummated. The news spread through the court like wildfire. Louis himself wrote in his hunting journal that night, a single telling entry that stood amidst the mundane records of stags and pheasants. 18th, nothing. For a man who recorded only his hunts, the act of consummation fell into the category of nothing. But for the court it was everything. Marie Antoinette wrote to her mother, her letter a mix of relief and triumph. "I have finally felt the most essential happiness of my life. I am now truly his wife." The following year, on December 19, 1778, Marie Antoinette gave birth to her first child, a daughter, Marie-Thérèse Charlotte. The locked door had been opened. The dynastic crisis was seemingly averted. But it was too late. The damage was irreversible. The 7 years of scandal had cemented an image of the queen in the public mind that no amount of motherhood could erase. She was still Madame Deficit. The king was still a bumbling fool. The whispers of incompetence and extravagance had taken root in the heart of a nation groaning under the weight of debt and inequality. When the revolution came, the Austrian whore and the impotent tyrant were its perfect villains. The locked door of their bedroom became a symbol of everything that was wrong with the monarchy, its secrecy, its dysfunction, its disconnect from the lives of its people. Their final years were a stark contrast to the glitter of Versailles. Imprisoned in the Temple prison, the roles reversed. Louis, no longer a hesitant king, found a quiet, dignified courage. Marie Antoinette, no longer a frivolous girl, became a figure of steely, maternal resilience. On January 21, 1793, Louis XVI was led to the guillotine. His final moments were spent trying to console his weeping confessor. On October 16, 1793, Marie Antoinette followed him. As she rode in the cart to the Place de la Révolution, her hair shorn white by grief, she maintained a regal composure that she had so often lacked in her youth. She accidentally stepped on the foot of her executioner. Her last words were, "Pardon me, sir, I did not do it on purpose." The door was locked no more. But it was opened only to let them walk to their deaths. In the end, the most private trouble of two very human, very flawed individuals became the very public undoing of a world. Their story is a timeless reminder that the personal is always, inevitably, political. And that sometimes, the smallest, most intimate failures can cast the longest and most devastating of shadows.